This is CineBack for the Canon R5 C, R5, and R6. It is a cinema-style accessory that converts your camera into a boxy, heavy-duty form factor ready for cinema use. It has a battery plate on the back for use with V-mount or gold mount batteries, a screen holder that protects your screen from impact on the side, top, or bottom so that you can either close your screen or open it up for a side view, and can be used in a top-down configuration as you see here. Power goes from the battery to a master power switch to cut power to all accessories, and that power is fed through a 4X reversible D-Tap connector, and you can use either dummy batteries or, as I have here, a power delivery adapter, which is hidden behind our brand new Vanity plate, which is a hinged door allowing access for all kinds of cable management and a place to tuck other cables, accessories, and hide them and secure them in CineBack. There are multiple ways to run your cables, multiple top ports, bottom ports, and that's on all sides of the rig. So there's so many different ways to run cables and keep them all tidy inside of CineBack so they're not floating around the entire rig. All of the buttons and displays and controls and switches can be completely accessible without any obstructions. Everything is mounted with these heavy-duty aluminum plates, and all of the plastic used is high temperature and high impact ready, making CineBack a great tool for any shooting scenario. And in this video, I'm going to dive into all of the different features and how to install your camera into CineBack. So let's go ahead and dive in by talking about what comes in the box. Now let's cover what comes in the box if you pick up CineBack for the R5 C. CineBack will be packed nicely in a bag with a QR code that you can scan to find this video. You'll find the main unit itself, which I'll set over here, as well as a little baggie filled with all of the necessary hardware to mount the camera and cage to CineBack, and a couple other things which we'll talk about here in a second. Next, let's cover camera and cage compatibility with this model of CineBack. At launch, the CineBack is going to be compatible with the Canon R5 C, the Canon R5, and Canon R6. As time goes on, we will be able to do more testing with different Canon cameras, but at launch, this is what we're working with. And when it comes to cages, there are two cages that are compatible. First is going to be this Tilta model, which is the one I would recommend if you're going to run a R5 C in this version of CineBack. It's very robust. It has nice wide mounting points at the top and bottom. Just a great cage all around. There is alternatively this SmallRig cage, which has tighter points on the top and requires an adapter, which is included with this version of CineBack. But this will allow you to use not only the Canon R5 C, but also the Canon R5 and the Canon R6. Now keep in mind that since the Canon R5 C is a rather thick cookie, you're going to have a gap when using the regular R5 and R6 with this version of CineBack. For the R5 C, it's great. It looks amazing. It's perfectly designed for that. But just keep in mind, you're gonna have a little bit of a gap on those other two cameras, which I'm sure you'll find uses for, like cables, adapter boxes, and other gear. If we add more camera and cage compatibility to this version of CineBack, you're gonna find that information down below this video. Now let's move on to installation of your camera into CineBack. We're gonna start by talking about installation with the Tilta cage. So the first step is going to be installing your camera into the cage. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. Okay, I've got the camera installed into the cage. At this point, I'm going to flip the screen out on the camera, and we're going to slide the camera right down the middle of CineBack, and we're going to line up the top two holes with these top two slots. Next, I'm going to take two of these 3/4 20 bolts and attach them to the top here. I have loosely installed them, as you can see. I'm going to take the whole camera system, flip it over, and we're going to add one more screw right here onto the bottom. So our third and final socket screw is going to go right here. The camera looks nice and straight. Go ahead and snug up that bottom screw, flip the whole thing over, and we'll tighten up those top two screws. And keep in mind, if you need to slide things around a little bit to get everything centered and straight, go ahead and do so now. And with those three screws snugged up, our camera system is ready. And as you can see, It's something to behold. Man, I just love this thing. At this point, I would recommend taking a look at your alignment and making sure that the top and the bottom of the camera screen is parallel with these two guide rails on the side of CineBack. If it looks like it's a little skewed one way or the other, you can loosen this bottom screw and kind of scoot the bottom of the camera forward and back until this is nice and parallel. And that's it. 2 screws on the top, 1 on the bottom, and you're done. To remove the camera from CineBack, simply remove those 3 screws and the camera will slide right out. I like to then thread them right back into the top plate so I don't lose them. 1 screw on the bottom, we'll throw that back in CineBack and just slide the camera back out. Now we can run around with a smaller camera system, and CineBack can go in a camera bag. One important setting you'll want to change in your R5C is going to be the EVF. Because we have it built in here, we're not going to be using the EVF, we're going to be using our display or an external monitor. So we want to turn off the auto sensor because it gets pretty dark in there and you might have a black screen even while your camera is on. So if we hop into the menu system here, right at this location in the menu, you'll see here we have LCD VF output. I'm going to go in here and make sure I have it set to LCD only. By default, I believe it's set to auto 1. So go ahead and jump down to LCD only, select that, and now you can go ahead and close the screen and you won't have, the screen go black because we're now using just the LCD and not the sensor that's built into the eyepiece. Now let's talk about setting up CineBack with the SmallRig cage for the R5C, R5, or R6. So the first thing you're going to want to do is install the cage or your camera in the cage. Then you're going to want to flip the cage upside down, and you'll notice here just behind the 1/4-20 flat head screw that mounts the camera to the cage, I have added a 3/8 to 1/4-20 thread adapter. It looks like this and it's included with CineBack. So you're going to want to install that right here in this 3/8 thread. Then we can go ahead and remove or flip out the screen. From there, we can install this adapter, which will allow us to use this cage. So it's a custom spacer. It is mounted with 2 silver screws, and you can mount it just like this. You'll see these 2 exposed threads there. And the idea is that you'll be able to kind of see the yellow through those 2 holes in this plastic part that won't scratch up your cage. That'll give us the correct spacing. And here is what the adapter looks like on its own. So that comes with CineBack. You need to mount it just like you see here. And with that done, we can simply take the camera and cage, flip the screen out, and slide it into place right down the center. And we'll grab 2 screws, which will be these 2 slightly longer screws, not the shorter screws included in the kit. These are going to go in the top. One of the shorter black screws will go on the bottom. Simply line up the 2 threads on the camera cage with those 2 holes. Then we can take our 2 screws and install them, and you should have something like this. From there, we can flip the camera over and install our 3rd and final screw in that little insert that we installed on the camera cage earlier. So again, I've got the small black 1/4-20 socket screw. I'm going to go ahead and throw that on there, and we will have CineBack complete. There it is. And again, if you need to mess with alignment, you can loosen this bottom screw and slide the base of the camera forward and back, and you'll see the display here come in or out of parallel with the rest of CineBack if you need to adjust it, but it should be pretty self-explanatory. So same thing goes with the Tilta cage. If you need to remove the camera, you simply pop out these 2 screws on the top, this screw on the bottom, and you're good to go. Next, let's cover the side panel or vanity plate of the R5C CineBack. For the first time on a CineBack, we have a door built in. So this actually hinges out. You can stick your finger in here and open the whole thing up to reveal a huge amount of space. This is great for cables, adapter boxes. There's just all kinds of stuff you can put in there, and then simply close the door when you want to conceal it. There's also a ton of different ways to route your cables. So there's actually a slot right down here if you want to feed a cable in there and come out to a D-Tap. There's one here, 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 and then on the other side, we have access points above the camera as well as here and down here. So many different ways to weave cables in and out, left, right, forward, back of CineBack. Out of the box, that door is not going to have a screw installed because I figure most of you are just going to be popping that out, sticking stuff in there, getting a feel for it. It is pretty rigid, so it's not easy to open. It's not going to accidentally flop open. So it's a little bit of a friction operation. But if you want to fully lock it down, you know you're not going to need to get in there without a screwdriver. There is a screw included. Here it is. I'll go ahead and install it so that we can see what that looks like. But essentially, it's just a Phillips head screw that you can fully lock this thing down for a bulletproof experience if you don't need to get in there regularly. So there's what it looks like with the flush mount screw installed, and now you won't be able to grab it. But it is very nice and convenient, and there's a nice little thumb latch there to be able to pull that out, and it also doesn't mess with the EVF of this display or the camera. Next, I want to talk about power on CineBack. So the way power works is we have a battery plate on the back that is connected to a switch on the operator side, which controls power going to the D-taps on the opposite side or the dummy side of the camera. For the V-mount, we have so many different battery options, and really all of them are compatible, all the way up to giant ones like this 212 from SmallRig. If you want to run all day with a ton of accessories, it's actually not that insane on this huge rig. So I love that. Of course I love it because it's got my name on it. Big fan of that. And all the way down to smaller stuff. So here we have a SmallRig 99 Pro. That works beautifully. And then of course we have some more exotic stuff, which is always fun as well. So really no issues there. There will be a gold mount if there's enough demand. So if you're interested in that, let me know and we'll get that on the store. I'll go ahead and throw this Bebob V-mount battery on there to talk about the power switch. So the power is going to control juice flowing from here to here. And whenever this is off, there is zero battery drain from CineBack. So if there's USB jacks on your battery, that might still chew up, you know, some power, but there's nothing going. So you can throw this whole thing in your camera bag and know that we're not going to be draining any of your precious battery life. For powering the actual camera, there are kind of two primary ways to go. The first is going to be USB-C and using the Canon's built-in battery, which is currently what I'm running right now. So I've got a Canon battery here in the grip, and then you'll notice I have a USB-C cable that is going through CineBack and spitting out the other side and plugged in with a D-Tap. So this is actually a Condor Blue D-Tap to USB-C with a USB-C cable installed. And as you can see, it's a super clean setup. Obviously, I don't love these Canon flaps, but aside from that, we've got a nice clean cable going into CineBack, and I'll actually disconnect this D-Tap and open the door so you can see there's the Condor Blue box with the USB-C cable connected. So I can simply close that, go ahead and plug it back in, and now we're gonna have juice flowing from our battery, power delivery, and we're gonna be able to use all of the R5C's built-in recording options. I've disconnected it so we can talk about the next power option, but there's what it looks like, that Condor Blue cable. I'm gonna set that aside and grab our next option, which is going to be a dummy battery. This is also a Condor Blue cable. They just make great cables. Now I'm gonna install that, so I'll close our Vanity side door. I'll go ahead and remove the Canon battery. We'll stick in our dummy battery. Actually, first I'm gonna pop out this little plastic piece here, which is where the cable ejects. Connect that, close the door, and now we're gonna run the cable and we're gonna hide it in CineBack. So I'll go ahead, open up that side door again, and just grab the cable, tuck it in place, tons of room, so much room, and I'm gonna come out the little ejection spot right here and go ahead and plug this in. Give myself a little cable slack so I don't break anything. And there we go. Again, very, very tidy. I would personally go with a black cable. I'm not wild about the blue, but hey, to each their own. And now we can simply turn on CineBack, power up the camera, flip things over so you can see that we do indeed have power. I'll hit record there. So that's a great way to go. You're going to have juice going through into the camera. Not maybe as safe as power delivery because you don't have that dual, power system. And sometimes dummy batteries can be kind of funky, but those are the two primary ways to power your camera using CineBack. Both are gonna give you really clean options when it comes to cable management. Another new feature of this version of CineBack for the R5 C is the reversible D-Tap connector. So you'll see currently this plate looks like it's upside down actually, or the text is upside down, and we have the cables going toward the camera. This whole plate can be reversed. So if you would rather have your cables go backward so they don't interfere with the grip, see how the cable's kind of hitting my palm or my wrist, you can actually do that. You can have the cables going backward. A lot of people don't like that because they just don't like cables going backward. I'm okay with it because the battery is here to kind of keep them from getting hit, but you can reverse it. So let's go ahead and talk about that now. To reverse the D-Tap, make sure you have CineBack turned off. You remove the battery and disconnect any cables going from the D-Tap. Then we're going to need to grab a Phillips head screwdriver and remove these 4 screws around the D-Tap connectors. With those 4 screws removed, the D-Tap will be loose and you can rotate it. Now, I would recommend you be very careful. Don't pull on this. It's not going to move very far forward, just enough so that you can rotate it around and stick it back in place. At this point, you add the 4 screws back and you're good to go. Now, as you can see, these cables will be going backward as opposed to forward. Out of the box, it's going to be oriented where the cables are going forward toward the camera, since it seems like a very popular option. So just like that is how you'll get it out of the box, with the cables moving toward the camera like you see here. Now I can add those 4 screws back. I would recommend you do not over tighten these. It does not take a lot to hold these in place, and we obviously don't want to crack anything. With that done, we can now reconnect cables, add our battery back, and we're ready to go back out and shoot. So that is CineBack for the R5 C. It is available in our store now at camerafoundry.com. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in our next product video.